All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Okay, good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first live broadcast of the Christian Reacts channel, and this is going to be part 2 of the debate between Pearl Davis and Trent Horn. And the title of this video is marriage a bad deal for men? The link to this full debate is in the description below.
Women are getting STDs. Women are getting abortions. The majority of women today are not marriageable. They're overweight. They're out of shape. And, saying that marriage is good isn't going to change that, isn't going to make women want to be wives. The next thing that I noticed that you said was that unmarried men are more likely to have a sexless life. Obviously. Obviously. Men that cannot attract women obviously are not, duh.
But she never addressed what Trent's point was in saying that. Because Trent Horn says that men under the age of 30 that are single in the United States the majority of them are sexless. Like or either not virgins, but they haven't engaged in any sort of sexual intimacy at all. And Pearl does not address the solution for that. So if a man has more intimacy in marriage and they don't have it when they're single without being married, how does a man get that intimacy pretty much?
And you never address that men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after marriage. Even if it's a 5%, 1 out of 50, even if it's a 1 out of 50 chance or 1 out of 100 chance that you commit suicide, that's negligence. That's negligence. Any car would be recalled if 1% of people died. I just think at the end of the day that I would never sign a deal that one party is paid to leave, and you're not addressing the lack of quality of women that are on the market today. Men cannot make women want to be wives. And if women don't want to be wives, basically, it's not gonna happen. The other thing is that, if marriage is such a good deal, why aren't men signing up? Good products, technically, they get off the market quickly. Men naturally, they want to do things that make sense. And the issue that you're going to get is that, again, the quality of women is lower than ever before. The cost of marriage is higher than ever before. And until that changes, until some of the laws change, it is just not a good deal for men.
Okay, so one thing I would say to refute her point, because she does make a lot of good points. She makes a point that the rate of suicide is very high with men that are... I don't know if she's talking about divorced men. That's what I'm assuming it is, not like just men, every single married man, but obviously they're still alive. But I think with divorced men, that's probably true. And that's the point that Trent's going to have to address. But also, she makes very good points with that. Let's see what... I just sped it up a little bit, so just to get my commentary in while I play the video.
You still have 2 minutes and 41 seconds if you'd like to keep going.
That's okay.
Okay. So you have a 5-minute rebuttal, Trent, whenever you want to begin.
Sure.
If you want that, you're welcome. Ready?
All right.
Go for it.
All right, so I want to focus on one very clear fact that refutes Pearl's case, that she has not cited any studies looking at men and seeing what do they think. I mean, if marriage is such a bad deal for men, we don't need Pearl to tell us that. Why don't we just ask men themselves?
Right, and that's what I forgot to say with Pearl's point. Many celebrities are also getting married right now. Like the majority of celebrities are not like Leonardo DiCaprio, as the media always portrays him to be, as like a guy that just is a player and all that. I mean, yes, it's true. He gets a lot of intimacy and all that. But that is not the majority of celebrities. If you look at Hollywood, if you look at high status men, many of them are married. And you have to wonder why that is the case.
Ask married men, were you given a bad deal? Were you given a raw deal? You go online, you go to Amazon, you go to all other kinds of places, you can see people write product reviews and saying whether they got a bad deal out of something. And you should probably trust someone who actually tried the product and wrote a review instead of someone writing reviews about a product they've never tried before. And I've already shown the data that married men identify as being more happier than unmarried men. They live longer. They're healthier. So marriage is a good deal for them. It certainly isn't a bad deal for them. They get many benefits out of that. And Pearl has not refuted that. All she's been reduced to saying is that marriage is a bad deal for men because apparently women aren't worth marrying, which is just not true. She's pointing out flaws in women, but she gives a pass to men. It's a kind of reverse form of simping, if you will, because men also fall under this. So let's talk about some of the things that she brought up about the issues of being sexless, saying that 20% of marriages are sexless. That's only if you include senior citizens in the entire framework. As I said, the General Social Survey shows that unmarried men are twice as likely to be sexless as married men. So if you're a guy and if that's something that is important to you in your life, marriage is the covenant through which sex makes the most sense, you have the most access to it, and it's the safest and best thing for you and for the children that will proceed from your union. She made a big deal about weight. Women are overweight. Women gain 20 pounds in marriage. She's probably referring to the Gordon Larson 2009 study on that. But that same study showed that married men gain 30 pounds over the same period. Unmarried cohabiting women gain 18 pounds during that period, and single women gain 15 pounds during that period. So all that proves is as we get older, instead of growing up, we tend to grow out. That's just life. And it's nice as you get married to have someone else to grow up and out with you. And mature people recognize that and don't just reject marriage because of a biological fact of reality. Women don't want to be wives. There's no evidence Pearl gave to support that conclusion. At least I can look at anecdotally. Think about it in your own life. How many times have you heard a girl lament that her boyfriend, she'd love to get married, but her boyfriend doesn't want to get married or he's dragging his feet?
Oh, wait, you know what? I think I already played this part of the video. My apologies. Let me speed up a little bit here. And let's go back to here.
And if you'd like, I can let you know when you have 3 minutes left or something.
Okay, 1 second. Okay.
No worries. Take your time.
Do you think that women should be obedient to their husbands?
Yeah, I think that they should be obedient to their husbands when their husbands give them a rational request or directive. But I think that husbands and wives should lead each other to Christ and to the goodness of their family.
So what do you define as rational?
In accord with reason. So something that doesn't go against what reason would dictate.
Can I have an example?
Of
so like I'm assuming crimes.
Of something that's rational or irrational.
Yeah, irrational.
Yeah, if a husband says...
Like obviously no crimes, right?
Yeah, or if a husband says, I want you to lose a massive amount of weight, for example, that would put someone's... If your husband wants you to do something to change your body that would put your health at risk, I would say that's irrational.
Okay, but a normal amount of weight would be fine.
I would say I think it's fine for husbands and wives to want each other to be healthy, but it's very quickly that if a husband or a wife asks for a person to be of a certain weight, that can easily be more of it out of a desire for vanity than for the other person's well-being.
What about health?
What about health? I think it's fine. I think
this is a really good point that Trent makes right here, because obviously with weight, like as a man speaking right now, the majority of men want their wives to be in shape. They don't want them to blow up. They don't want them to be completely obese and heavy and overweight. However, Trent's point is very clear, and I like what he says that the pathway to losing weight could go down a very dark hill, a very dark road, if their wives take shortcuts to please their husbands, such as restricting what they eat, not getting nutrients in their body. From the outside, it appears they lost 20, 30 pounds. But if they're not having their nutrition, the nutrients that they need to live a successfully long life, and you're basically just hurting yourself internally in the body, then that is almost destructive and irrational, as Trent says. So I do agree with that. However, losing weight for health reasons, healthy weights, such as working out, having a better diet, restricting sugar intake, calorie deficits, all those things are 100%, I fully agree with those. But anything outside of that is irrational, like Trent says.
I think it's good for husbands and wives to want each other to be healthy.
No, but I'm asking the husband. Why do you always bring it back to the husband? Because I'm asking about the wife. I didn't ask you about the husband.
Because I'm
saying for the husband, can he ask that his wife stays a certain weight? Is that rational?
It's rational for him to ask her to be healthy, but staying at a certain weight your entire life, that's not necessarily going to be healthy. Like saying, I want you to always be 120 pounds. Like, hey, I got pregnant. Oh, I'm kind of getting past that now. I don't like that. That would be irrational.
He would not be allowed to do that under your thought?
I think it would be insane if a man said that his wife needs to stay a certain...
Why? Why? What's wrong with men having standards? What's wrong with that?
Pearl, you do realize that it's absolutely... Like, literally, there was a joke in The Office where BJ Novak says some supermodels lose weight when they're pregnant. That shows that he's just an insane, chauvinistic person. To demand that a wife stay at a certain weight, even though as you get older, you naturally gain weight, and especially when you get pregnant, you gain at least 9 pounds of weight. That would be insane to demand someone stay at a certain weight.
Women lose it all the time.
I fail to see how any of this is relevant to marriage, by the way.
What I'm trying to understand is your mindset. So why can't men have standards in marriage? Because if you're saying that men can't have standards in their own marriage, like you're saying it's irrational for a guy to demand his wife stay a certain weight. Why? Why is that wrong?
To stay a certain weight during their entire marriage.
Why? Why is that wrong?
Because
I've seen women do it.
Would you like me to answer the question?
Just go ahead.
Okay. Because biologically, our bodies change over time. They'll naturally gain and lose weight in different circumstances, and your worth as a spouse, whether you are a husband or a wife, is not derived by your weight. That's just a shallow thing. Now, I think that both husbands and wives should encourage the other to encourage.
It's your job to be attractive.
I think husbands and wives should both maintain attractiveness.
Right, but why do you always have to bring it back? Because right now, because we're asking about the deal for men. So I'm looking at this from the man's point of view. What does the man get out of it? Is this a good deal?
He
can't even ask for an in-shape wife.
He gets a woman.
He can't even say 120 pounds.
Can I?
So first of all, Pearl. So this is really complicated because, of course, as a man, I would want my wife to be like in shape. Of course, who wouldn't want that? But the thing is, what Pearl is saying when she says that a woman should maintain her same exact weight her entire life compared to being healthy your entire life are two completely different things. I mean, if a woman, like, especially with like having children and going through hormones, the menstrual cycle every month, like all these things, their body weight is going to fluctuate and change a lot. So I disagree with Pearl's statement in that she needs to maintain this one exact weight her entire life. I just don't think that's realistic. Now, again, can a woman be toned most of her life? I do believe that. I believe if they do workouts, if they're consistent in the gym, if they're consistent with their dieting, if they care about their body with calorie deficits, all that in a healthy way, and not through eating disorders or anything internally destructive, then yes, they can maintain a healthy weight. However, I don't agree with Pearl that maintaining a healthy weight is keeping your weight at 115 or 120.
Hey, can I answer the question?
I'm asking.
He gets a woman who's promised to stay with him, even though statistically he'll gain 30 or 40 pounds.
And that,
so that's a really good point he tries to reverse it back. But again, the title of this debate is marriage a bad deal for men in particular? So I think Pearl has a little bit of advantage over Trent right here because she's speaking to the idea of the importance of marriage for men in particular and not really the flaws of men, though that should be explored absolutely.
Women's job has far more of a job to be beautiful than men. Men's job is to protect and provide.
So do women
like what is wrong with a man asking that she stays a certain weight?
Because it's shallow. It's fine to ask someone to be healthy, and it's fine to encourage your spouse to maintain attractiveness, not to just let yourself go. But that's the same for husbands and wives. Neither should just let themselves go. But at the same time, each one should be merciful, knowing that time and age come for all of us.
The reason that the obesity, I've looked that up before, the reason that the men are more overweight than women is because you don't look at visceral fat. So like when men are very high like muscle percentage, they're still considered overweight more so than women. So a more accurate way to look at that is visceral fat. And women have higher rates of visceral fat than men. So actually women are more, and if you look at extreme obesity, women are more obese. So I don't know why you're like kind of lying with that stat, trying to act like men are equally obese. They're not.
Well, men are still overweight, but that still doesn't show none of that shows marriage is a bad deal for men.
Next question, should men marry women that have had abortions?
Should men marry women that have had abortions?
Should men marry women that have had abortions?
I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker.
Should men marry women with STDs?
I wouldn't say.
A quarter of women have herpes. Should men marry them?
I'm going to answer. I would like to answer your question. I would say just as it is not a disqualifier for if a man facilitated an abortion, and 90% so for every woman who chooses to get an abortion, 90% of the time the man is actively or passively supporting it. So just as it's not a deal breaker for
very good point he makes right here. So I like that Trent doesn't completely ignore so when Pearl says like when we get abortion, when we get STD, all that stuff, of course these things are negatives for a Christian man's perspective. However, Trent points out that the majority of men that are in this pregnancy story, a lot of them pay for the abortions or support them passively. 90%. I don't know where I got the statistic from, but regardless if it's true, and just from the stories I've read, many men support abortion when a child is or when a woman is pregnant before marriage or just in an inconvenient time. So I think it's really important that Trent brings that up.
For a woman,
I'm asking for the future man. I'm not saying that he asked her to abort his. This is another man's kid. She's had an abortion.
No, what I'm saying is I'm applying an equal standard here. So I would say that it is not a deal breaker for a man to marry a woman who's had an abortion, just like it's not a deal breaker for a woman to marry a man who had facilitated an abortion.
Should men marry women that have slept with over 10 men?
Should they marry someone who's slept with over 10 men? I would say that when you have more sexual partners, that's definitely that's something that's concerning. That could be a red flag.
So you would say no?
But that doesn't apply. I'm not going to say that someone is unmarriageable because of one particular trait.
What about porn?
Okay, what
about women that have participated in porn? Should men marry women that have participated in porn?
I would say that that's definitely a red flag, but it is not it's not a deal breaker.
Do you have a son?
Can I ask the questions? Because you can keep asking questions and I'll never answer them.
Because it just would be easier if I got a yes or no, because you keep giving me these roundabout and I'm just like, yes or no.
I'm giving you good answers. Okay, so I'd like to finish about pornography.
Go ahead.
I would say it's not a deal breaker if a woman had participated in pornography. Much the same way it is not a deal breaker. Well, it's something to be very, very worried about. So I'll answer it this way. It's very hard for me to find anything that's a deal breaker for marriage, except for maybe diagnosed severe mental illness, for example, or addiction to drugs, things like that. But that would apply to men and women. So when it comes to pornography, I would say it's very concerning if if a woman had previously engaged in pornography, just like it is very concerning if a woman chooses to marry a man who's previously viewed pornography.
But this is my question.
So I like how he puts on both the perspectives for both genders, because I think both have an equal part to play in this. I mean, the porn addiction for men in the church is just astronomical. It's unbelievable. The church I attend right now, there's a ministry for men to help, just for a community to work together in dealing with the addictions to porn, because it's very rampant in our society today, especially in our culture, and the demonic attack that porn has on marriages and the family. It's an awful thing, and it's a very real problem today in the world. And again, I'll push back a little bit on Trent, though. I kind of side with him so far in this debate, but it's very hard. Like, I don't think a man should, in my opinion, a man shouldn't marry or consider a woman marriageable if they have conducted themselves in porn videos or anything like that, if they have never repented or asked God for forgiveness and rebuked what they have done and turned away from that completely and never looked at it again. That's the only way that I think a woman would be considered marriageable. Now, in my opinion, I don't think I could ever get past that if a woman did that and I was in their life and we were dating or whatever. But for them to be considered marriageable by a majority of men out there, they have to completely rebuke and repent of what they've done and never touch it, never do that again to be considered marriageable. So I don't believe that there's this idea of, if you do this, then you're completely just repelled and never you can never get married again, because it's not true. A lot of people can change and get married again, and we've seen that many men give chances to people that have done that. I don't think I could, to be honest with you, but many other men have done that and given women chances for marriage, despite what they've done in the past.
It's like, why can't men have standards? And this is what I've noticed from the trad community and like the conservatives. It's like the quality of women keeps going down and down and down. And we can't even definitively say, hey, maybe we shouldn't marry porn stars. Maybe we shouldn't marry overweight women. You know, it's like we constantly get rid of standards for men.
No, I'm fine with standards as long as...
we can't even... No, you're not, because you're not even definitively saying you shouldn't marry a porn star. You would never in a million years tell your son to marry a porn star.
An active, currently working porn star?
Even a previous porn
you
star.
said former.
Even former. You would never. Come on, someone you love. Okay. And this is why.
You can keep talking, or you can ask me a question. Because I was going to say, I do believe in standards, Pearl. I just believe they should be applied equally. So if women have a past in porn and that makes them unmarriageable, fine. Then we should just say any man who's looked at porn, don't marry him either.
The equal
is it okay for men to look at porn?
The equal equivalent would be a man that's participated in porn. That would be the equal equivalent if we're really going to go apples to apples here. But what I'm asking is, okay,
and there's lots of men who participate in porn, right?
You know, a quarter of women, up to a third, have an STD. Should men marry them?
Should they marry them?
Yeah.
Just the same reasons would apply if you ask women, should they marry men who have STDs? Because men have lots of STDs. And if it's okay to marry them.
But why is it, what about the men? It's like the craziest
thing. Because men and women
thing.
are equal. Men and women are equal. We should treat them equally.
It's the craziest. I don't think men and women are equal.
Are they equal in value and dignity?
Sorry, just real quick. Trent, you can ask questions in your cross-examination.
Sure.
I'm not.
I love how heated this is getting, because I feel like it's before it was very like passive and just like stating what you believe in, but now they're getting in the meat of this debates. It's very, very interesting. And by the way, men and women being equal, like I think regarding the Bible in particular, the Bible doesn't espouse anything about egalitarianism, but more so being complementary to each other. So the Bible states that men, it's not good for men to be alone, it's not good for women to be alone, but for us to be together. And marriage is one of the entities that God created in holy matrimony, so that men and women can engage and serve the Father, God, directly together through marriage. And in the eyes of God, we're all made in God's image, in the eyes of God. So I don't really understand what Pearl means by saying that men and women aren't equal. I don't know if she means before the eyes of God or just in society in general, because she's not a feminist, so I'm not sure what she means by that.
Coming at this from a religious point of view, what I am saying is that you keep telling men to lower their standards, because you were saying wife up these whores. 3% of women, 100 years ago, men got a virgin. They got a virgin 4+ kids.
Okay. So I don't think that's what Trent's saying at all, honestly. I think he's saying that if you're a former porn star and you rebuked your ways and don't do it again, then they can be considered for marriage. But Trent's not saying, he's not encouraging men to look for these type of women at all. So I'm not sure why she's saying that, honestly.
3% of women are waiting till marriage nowadays. You're saying wife them up anyway. Doesn't matter the risk. Who cares?
Do you have a question, Pearl?
So yeah, I'm going to go back to STD is not a deal breaker. Yes or no?
No, if they're not a deal breaker for men, they're not a deal breaker for women.
Okay. On top of that, porn, not a deal breaker?
Having been involved in pornography? Mm-hmm. No, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be very concerned about. The same as if a man had been behind the camera doing OnlyFans work or working at OnlyFans. But if he's truly repented, then people can really change, and we should give them mercy, whether they're a man or a woman.
People can change, but it doesn't mean they statistically do. Mm-hmm. And women that have made those decisions, statistically, statistically, it's not a happy ending for most of them. So that's the other question. Why would you sign up? Would you ever sign a business contract that someone's paid to leave? So me and you are going to do business, and I get a bunch of money and your children if I leave. You would sign that contract.
If you get my children, because maybe we're pairing our YouTube channels together, probably not going to sell off my kids on that. But it's very common in business deals, Pearl, where if you have a high value business partner and you really want them to be a part of the venture, you might include things like a buyout clause or severance pay. That's not that uncommon to ameliorate risk or to encourage them to take part in the project.
Okay, so would you sign the contract or no?
Would I sign a contract? Mm-hmm. You've made it very
where I'm paid to leave.
Where you're paid to leave if you're my business partner? Mm-hmm. It depends how much and what risk. Why
can't you answer the question?
Because your question is underdefined and can't be answered. You've asked it in a very vague way, so I can only give a vague answer.
Okay, me and you sign a business deal, and in that business deal, in that business deal, I get your whole YouTube channel if I leave, and I get your children. Are you signing it?
No, I'm not.
Exactly. That's the point. No, you're not signing it. And this is the thing. They act like it's one-off instances, and this is what the
oh my gosh. So I think Pearl. This is a very lazy example that Pearl's saying, like, if you sign this contract and I get your YouTube channel and your children, like, it's a very lazy example because marriage is very complex, it's very complicated, and I'm not completely discounting anything Pearl's saying. If a man marries a woman that cheats on them or just does something completely awful and warrants a divorce, and I don't mean awful, just like treating them poorly for a period of time and you're going through bad times or whatever, but infidelity or things that are very clearly breaking the trust of the marriage, then yes, those things, losing your most valuable possessions and even not possessions but your children, not being able to see your children for periods of time is very hard. So Pearl makes a good point here, but her example of saying, like, would you sign a contract where if I leave, like, I take your YouTube channel and you're getting your kids, like, it's a very lazy way of going about this very complex discussion, in my opinion, at least.
Academics tend to do. They'll say, here's a study funded by this organization, or here's another study, and they want you to not believe what's in front of your eyes. Men are not signing up for marriage today. And you can say it's that marriage is a great deal for men, but men are naturally logical. They do what makes sense. 100 years ago, men were still men, same software. They married women in 3 months. There's a reason it's gone up to 3 years.
I would sign a contract where if you're undergoing significant risk, and the whole point of things that if a marriage divorces is that women undertake risks. If they come and then they give up their careers and they stay home and raise children, for example, and they
the majority of women aren't doing that. The majority of women are not doing that statistically. 3 out of 4 women are working, so it's not the majority.
The point is, if they go and do that and they take part in a marriage, you're undertaking risks when you're involved in marriage. Well, as I stated before, women are twice as likely to end up in poverty after divorce than men.
Because women are bad with money.
No,
women have 80% of the world's debt.
Women
have 80% of the world's debt. Women are not good with money. And many
men,
and many that's not true. Women have 80% of the world's debt. And the other thing that they don't take into account is that
in this country, men have more.
And women have 80% of the world's debt. Women are not great with money, and men earn more as well too. And the thing is, you're not addressing the suicide problem. Do you not think that's a problem?
Of course, suicide's problem is more of a problem for men who never marry.
I'm asking in divorce. They're 9 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce.
They're 9 times more likely than a divorced woman. You're misreading the statistic.
And in family.
I like how he pointed out that conjecture that Pearl brings up, because if they're 9 times more likely to commit suicide compared to divorce, women, that's still bad. Like, don't get me wrong, that's very bad, but that has nothing to do with marriage, like compared to not being married at all, because there's so many fruits in marriage that can be experienced with men. So yeah, I think it's kind of misleading, honestly.
family court, if they find within 5 years many men do commit suicide, what do you think? You think it's just made up? You think it's just fake? All these men that are saying my life is ruined.
Yes,
let him answer it. Go ahead.
No, because I've actually read the studies. And the problem is you're doing the comparison fallacy here. You're just picking, hey, if you get married, this bad thing can happen to you or this bad thing can happen to you, and that's true. But if you choose to not get married, you can also have many bad things happen to you. You can grow up and have no social connections. You become a recluse, and you're more likely to commit suicide. You're more likely just to not take care of yourself. And the statistics show that on average, ever married men, including divorced men, live longer, are healthier, and rate their lives as happier than never married men. It's a statistical fact.
Because women date happy men.
So
women pick for these things.
How do you know that?
Because I'm a woman. I'm a woman. I know what we pick for. We like tall, handsome, good-looking men.
Is every married man tall, handsome, and good-looking?
Not every, but he's usually one of those things. He's usually one.
So, yeah, again, Trent's completely destroying Pearl right here, because what did he use? He used statistics and studies from earlier in this segment, probably from my part 1 video, which you can check on my channel, showing studies that show that men who are married are happier, they're healthier, and they live longer, which are very important for society today. And many of that goes along with like their wives keeping them accountable with like eating well, but also taking them to doctor's appointments, like making sure they're checking on their health and all those things, which are very important. But Pearl, what does she do right here? She goes back to herself. She says, well, they're happier because women pick the handsome guy. Women pick the tall guy, the charismatic guy, the good-looking guy, the rich guy, the holy guy, or not holy. No one's really holy technically, but the guy that's tied to the church or whatever the case may be. But what she's completely getting wrong here is that women aren't, well, maybe in some cases, but women are not the ones that go on a knee to propose to a man, at least the majority of the time. It shouldn't be that way anyway. But men are the one going on a knee and proposing to those women. That's the thing. So the men are choosing to marry these women. They're the gateways to marriage and relationship. But women, they don't really control the marriage part. Their role is to convince the man that they're marriageable. And a lot of these men are still getting married to them.
Like he's usually either successful or handsome or good. Women don't marry homeless men off the street.
There's a big difference between tall, handsome, and successful and homeless. There's also average.
And so my point is, women tend to pick above average men. We see this on dating apps. Women swipe right 5% of the time. The number one way people are meeting under 30 is on dating apps.
That's because on dating apps,
but you don't know what you're talking about. You're not even out dating.
Because on dating apps, Pearl, the reason that women are so choosy is because there are 3 to 4 times as many men on dating apps than women. So men will be constantly swiping right. Women can be more choosy in that environment because there's just so many more men. But in real life, when you look at a 1993 study, another one by Taylor and another one by Taylor done in 2011. I would like to finish. Before Taylor study in 2011 shows that men and women, when they get married, they tend to be within the same social range and attractiveness. So while for dating and hookups, you're correct, women on social media apps, because there's so many men to pick from, go for the higher quality men. When it comes for marriage, people tend to marry within their own social and attractiveness value bracket.
This is a really good point that Trent makes right here, because again, he refuted Pearl's point, saying that women only want this type of guy for marriage. But in reality, a study from 2011, which he cited right here, shows that many of these women go for the similar type of guy that's in their social circle, their vocation, or their socioeconomic status range. It's something similar to that. I mean, being someone that was just graduated college a couple of years ago, many people got married before their careers were taking off for either person. And why did they get married? Because of their values, because of the values that they share, because of the similar social circle that they're a part of. So of course, if you ask a typical woman, do you want a guy that's wealthy? Do you want a guy like this or that has these benefits? If you're tied to long-term security forever, then obviously these things are admirable. I mean, it's admirable. Why wouldn't a woman say that? Just like if a guy is asked, would you want your woman to be in shape for the rest of your life? Yes, of course. Of course everyone would say yes. But it's just not it's not realistic, and it's not reality, especially if you look at marriage as in the eyes of God, being a union and a union to serve God. That's the purpose of marriage. And it's just not realistic for every woman to find a guy that has all this money and all this status and all that. So
right, but that doesn't disprove what I'm saying. Women pick a small percentage of men
when
given the choice.
That's not true, because I'm talking about marriage.
And again, she has it wrong because they choose a specific portion of men for hookups and casual relationships, not for marriage, as Trent is stating right here.
If women,
We're talking about marriage, not Tinder.
but that's the number one way people are meeting under 30. And that's the thing, like a lot of you guys are so out of touch. You don't see, like, these studies take years to come out at some time. I can tell you firsthand what's going on because I actually talk to the people.
No, I agree. It's dumb to try to meet your spouse on Tinder.
Right, but that's what's happening.
Right.
That's where the world is going.
Right.
And you're encouraging men to clean up women's mess. And I say men shouldn't have to do that. Men shouldn't have to sign a contract where women are paid to leave. I think it's so simple. If people are paid to do the wrong thing, why wouldn't they do it? Why, I'm not saying every woman will, but every woman can.
What woman is going to want to say, gee, you know what would be great?
Don't ask questions. Let her go.
Yeah. Well, I'll go. Well,
You can answer it,
Yeah,
but don't
I'll
ask
answer
questions.
it. No, the women aren't saying, gee, it would be so awesome if I married this guy and then got full custody of the kids. So now I'm a single parent and I have to take care of these kids. Good thing he sends me $440 a month to help with that. That doesn't sound like a great deal to me.
$440 over 18 years is over $100K. That's life-changing money. That is life-changing. And this is the thing.
Try raising children on three kids on $440 a month.
And this is the thing. This is the other thing that you don't think of. Oh, this is the other thing. See, I'm not used to. I always have to write it down. You said that men don't fight for custody. This is the problem with men in statistics. This is the problem when people just read studies and they're not actually in the field. You don't know why. You don't know why men aren't fighting, because a lot of times men are in the position they cannot afford to fight for custody, and the lawyers will tell them not to do it because they spend $50,000. You know, I interviewed one guy, $1.5 million in Texas, $1.5 million on a divorce. He still didn't get primary custody. These cases are common, and if you spent a day in family court, if you actually were in the field, you would know.
Okay, so that's an anecdote, and it also doesn't say anything about marriage, because if a man hooks up with a woman or cohabits and she gets pregnant, he can have the same issue. So this is not unique to marriage.
Well, yeah, but marriage puts them at a higher risk because they're on the hook for alimony as well.
Alimony is only paid out in 8% of marriages.
I know, but what does a man get out of marriage that he doesn't get out of a living girlfriend? What benefit?
Well, he doesn't. One benefit, he's not a 45-year-old guy saying, "Can I bring my girlfriend to the party?"
Who cares?
One, he's not that. He's a mature, stable person.
Okay.
What does he get out of it? He
What
lives
benefit?
longer. He's healthier.
No. What benefit does he get out of specifically signing that contract? What does he get?
Gets,
women give children outside of marriage, so that he doesn't get that. The women gain weight after marriage. He doesn't get that. And all of the stats you're saying you're attributing to marriage, I would disagree.
Well,
I would say that women tend to marry happy, successful men.
That is just a correlative theory that you have, and that's not true, because if you just look around at men, and when you do longitudinal studies that control for success, see, that's not the case. One longitudinal study found that after a man gets married and upon the birth of his first child, he works 10 to 20 hours a week more than unmarried men.
Right, because women love spending men's money. Of course he's got to work more. Even car salesmen will tell you the final say is who? The woman.
No, it's because now he's grown up, Pearl. He's grown up and he realizes life isn't just about him. He has to take care of other people.
My wife's credit card spending is off the chain. And that's the thing. I am in the field. I am in the field. That's the thing. That's the thing, because when you actually interview the men that have gone through this, you have a completely different perspective. And that's the thing, because we just went through COVID. How many studies did they have? And experts that came out and said, COVID, you should take the shot. Oh, sorry, I don't want to YouTube you, but
you have 1 minute left.
But my entire point is you can make a study that says anything, but if you look at reality,
so studies are wrong except for the ones you cite for your positions.
If you look at reality, you would never sign a contract that someone is paid to leave, and the quality, there are just not enough wives to go around.
You have 40 seconds left. Feel free to ask any more questions.
No, I think that's it.
All right, no problem. All right, we've got 20.
It's really, I love this debate right now because I wish Pearl became more prepared with studies. I think she's relying too much on her anecdotal experience in her interviews, because I think feels very entitled to have a moral high ground because she's interviewed a lot of men on her channel. But what's one thing that her channel isn't? Her channel is not academic peer-reviewed studies like Trent Horn has presented during this interview. The only thing she's really presented is the fact that divorced men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide than compared to divorced women. And that's an absolutely terrible statistic, and it's verified data, but she has not shown much else beside that. A lot of what she's showing is comparison theories and just kind of her own kind of ideas of what men and women are looking for, and it's not really verified.
20 minutes. Again, you're asking the questions, you're responding to them.
All right.
We'll try not to talk over each other, just for the sake of those at home, as best as we're able. Ready, set, go.
Alrighty.
It's kind of fun.
It is fun. You'll get addicted to it after a while.
I was a little nervous, but it's kind of fun.
Then you get right into it. It's just fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alrighty. We brought up something earlier about men. Do you think men and women have equal basic value, like equal dignity?
What do you mean by dignity?
They have the same intrinsic goodness. Men and women are equal in their basic value, their goodness as human beings.
I think
I love how she has to think about that for so long. I feel like that's honestly one of the easiest questions to answer out of this whole debate, but let's see what she says.
Because it depends.
Things.
I think that Because it depends, right? It depends how, like, I think that men do more good in society than women. And I'm assuming that's like the tweet you're talking about. But
No, I'm asking because earlier I said men and women are equal and you denied that. And I said I agree that men and women are unequal in many ways. But surely, like, for example, do white and black people have equal dignity?
Yeah, sure.
Do men and women have equal dignity?
Sure.
Okay, good. That's really good to hear. All right. So you say marriage is a bad deal for men. For a marriage that does so...
I don't know why she had to have that comparison to be like, yep, men and women are equal in dignity. Because just because of like people of different races being equal, so now you say men and women are equal in dignity. Like, I feel like that's a really strange thing to have to go back and forth on. But okay,
that's really good to hear. All right. So you say marriage is a bad deal for men. For a marriage that does so, because a majority of marriages do not end in divorce. So then for the marriages, at least let's say this: for the marriages that don't end in divorce, are those bad deals for men?
If the wife gained a significant amount of weight, I would say bad deal. Most men don't want a fat wife, I would say. If the wife cheats, I would say bad deal. Most men don't want a cheating wife.
Those are all fair points right there. Men do not want any of those things. They don't want a fat wife, and they don't want a woman that is basically committed infidelity.
If they're in a sexless marriage, I would say bad deal. Most men want... I think most men, if you said, hey guys, do you want to get married? Your wife isn't going to sleep with you after you have 2 children. They would say, oh, hell no.
What?
Oh, hell no.
Pearl,
So,
what would be the best...
Yeah, those are all fair points. Men don't want a sexless marriage as well.
Let's say a man says, I would like a long-term sexual relationship with a woman.
Okay.
What would you say is the best relationship kind for
what
him
do you
to
mean,
obtain
what do you mean by best?
If a guy says to you, Pearl, I would like a long-term sexual relationship with a woman, what kind of relationship should I pursue? Marriage, cohabitation, dating? Which would be the best strategy?
It depends on the state you're in, because some states have different states have different laws.
Just in general. Would you say...
Well, there's no general answer because it would depend on the state.
Why would it? Because what you're saying is that
for example,
let me finish. I can interrupt now. And that's where it gets fun.
Go ahead.
Because what you're saying is, it's not. Even though the majority of marriages don't end in divorce, you still say those are a bad deal because women gain weight, even though men gain weight also. But
what about the men though?
Do men in long-term cohabiting relationships, do those women gain weight?
Not as much, but the difference is it's easier to get out of. So if a woman gains weight, it's much easier to break up with a girlfriend than it is a wife.
Okay.
So you're able to have higher standards.
How much weight?
So, first of all, it's interesting, her idea of standards. I think, first of all, I think your standards should be high regardless of whether it's a girlfriend or a wife. But that's number one. And again, she makes a good point here. It's way easier to break up with a girlfriend than to break up with a wife because there's a lot more assets. There's a lot more involved, especially if it's children too. So,
can a woman gain in marriage before you consider her unmarriageable?
Depends on the guy. I think it's unfair more than like 20 pounds, 15 pounds. Yeah. What are you doing, ladies? Get on the treadmill.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. And I think it's good for women. I think it is good for women if men have standards
according to that Gordon Larson study, cohabiting women gain, what was it?
The studies I've seen, it's less.
Those less, but
I've seen around 10. I've seen 10.
That's the study you're citing for 24 pounds gain. They gain 18 pounds in marriage. People, the problem is, if you're saying that it's a bad deal for men to be in a relationship where women gain weight, and if women gain weight in all relationships, aren't you really just saying women are a bad deal for men, not marriage?
No, I'm saying that women, the difference is in a long-term relationship, you can say you need to change or I'm going to go. And women tend to act better when men have standards.
Okay. Do you agree that married men rate themselves?
So I kind of disagree with Pearl on this. Like, as far as the basic human nature, she may be right, but a wife's job is to be submissive to her husband. So when you think about this. What does that look like? What does it look like to be submissive to your husband? In my opinion, it means listen to him, follow his instruction as long as it's rational. If he's looking after your health and your well-being, and he's saying you're at a morbid rate of obesity, you need to lose weight, you need to cut this out. A lot of times, if you verify the facts, that is true. So I don't see anything wrong with that part, but that's if you're married in a Christian marriage and you're following those laws of marriage, and there's not this idea of I can disagree with my husband all the time, or all that BS. But when it's a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, there's not really anything tying both people together, and that's the longer I realize. Like, the more that I grow up, the more that I realize that, like, boyfriend and girlfriend is just like a weird kind of thing where you're kind of tied together just because you like each other. You're not seen together in the eyes of God, really. Unless you're married, in my opinion. So,
but do married men live longer than unmarried men?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so
because I think women tend to pick healthier men. I mean, we want, you know, I mean, why do you think women are throwing themselves at these like NBA player? We want the good.
Okay. So I love how Pearl says, like, she tries to refute Trent's point by saying, yeah, because women pick these healthier men. I mean, sure, but there's plenty of men that are overweight. And if you look at the statistics, there's a lot of overweight men, and there's not that much less overweight men compared to overweight women. There's more overweight women in the U.S., at least in the United States, but it's not by a lot when you really compare the details.
We want the good genes.
Are most men who get married not NBA players?
No, but you can see when you look at the men that women are throwing.
And NBA players, a lot of them, I don't want to speak on the majority of them, but like there's stories about what Pearl's talking about that are just hookup situations, and they're not actually marrying this type of men.
Throwing themselves at, you can see what women select for.
Okay. So, but you would agree, though, that even if that is correct, even if it's correct that women choose men who are happier and healthier, if a man chooses to get married, then that would seem that he is or has made himself to be a happy, healthy individual.
Yeah.
Right?
If
he gets successfully marries.
Can you say the question?
If a man successfully marries a woman, does that mean he has become a happy and healthy individual?
Not because of the marriage,
no,
but he was probably selected because he was that type of person.
So he's made himself into that kind of a person. He's disciplined himself. He's made himself at least somewhat successful, happy, and healthy. Okay, good. So he becomes that.
I wouldn't attribute it to marriage, though. I would attribute it to them. Like, I think men are going to do what they're going to do. They're on a mission.
On average, though, does marriage take that away from men, their happiness and their health?
I would say yes. I would say there are more men in unhappy marriages than happy. Out of the original 100 that got married.
Do you have
if you take the, I'm answering the question.
Go ahead, sure.
You want.
That's fine.
So, you know, the study you're talking about, 35%, I've heard that's a bit dishonest. I've heard it's more 50%, 45% of marriages end in divorce. The last one was from 2023. I know it's a little off because of COVID, but I think if you include sexless marriages, women that belittle their husband, that's really common. Women that make fun of their husbands in public.
You're taking it away from my main point. So you're claiming that these happy, healthy men who get married, the majority of them, they lose their happiness. Do you have a study that shows that? Because let me finish. Okay. I have cited the General Social Survey, Gallup surveys, hundreds of thousands of people who are tracked, Harvard Adult Study, 80 years, that married men rate themselves as happier and healthier. And the majority of them do.
But you're attributing that to marriage.
I'm not. I'm just saying. What I'm saying is that even if marriage is negative in some ways, it doesn't take that away from them. You're making the claim that the majority of married men aren't happy, but you have no study to back that up.
I'm saying that you can back it up when you look at.
This is a great point that he says. Let's see what Pearl says.
40%. Let's say 40% of marriages end in divorce. Okay, 40%. Now you have 6 left. A quarter of them are sexless. Boom, that's over 50.
That's not true. A quarter are not.
There you go. Women on average, and then on average, so at least half of the women gain 25 pounds.
I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to ask you another question again. So we do surveys, and we ask people if they're happy. And I've cited multiple studies, okay, where hundreds of thousands of married men are asked if they are happy. Okay. And the majority, 80% to 90%, say yes. Can you cite a study that shows that the majority of men in marriage say they're not happy?
Well, you're saying in marriage. I'm including divorced.
Sure. Wait, no,
that's my point. But my original statement was...
I'm going to interrupt because it's my turn. My original question was, for marriage, since the majority of marriages don't end in divorce, and if divorce is the only bad thing, then marriage is a good deal. So then setting that aside, you cannot show that married men are unhappy.
But I also added in, I said if a woman gains weight, that's a bad deal. If a woman cheats, that's a bad deal.
Do the men say it's not worth it? But do the men say it's not worth it to them?
You asked what I would classify as a successful marriage. I made the premise.
The debate is not whether Pearl thinks marriage is a bad deal.
You said I could make the premise.
Yeah, Pearl can make the premise, but again, she is addressing Trent's question. Do you have data, research, peer-reviewed studies, Gallup polls, anything to verify your position that married men are not happy in marriage? Because there's always so many jokes out there about how like men are happy and they're getting dragged and they're getting a nagging wife, and all those traits are bad. I think a nagging wife is terrible. I think a cheating wife is terrible. I think for at least from the man's perspective, all those things are awful. But do I have a peer-reviewed study for these cliche sayings that I hear all the time? I don't, and it looks like Pearl doesn't either. But let's see if she brings up a study here.
So I said a good deal is classified as a woman that stays in shape, F's her husband, and stays married and is obedient. Okay. So if she's not having sex with her husband and she's gaining weight, then that's 60%. At least half of them are doing that.
Who should we look to determine the standard of whether marriage is a good? Let me finish. Whether marriage is a good deal, married men or Pearl Davis?
I think you should look at men and what they're choosing, and they're not choosing marriage. Because if it was a good deal, it would be an easy sell. Good products get sold.
Is exercise
good products?
Is exercise a good deal? Or is exercising a good deal?
Exercising is a good deal, but
I
wouldn't say those are the same thing. Because again, if women were benefiting men, like they were 100 years ago, if we look at 100 years ago, men signed up for marriage within 3 months. That's all it took.
All right, here's my next question.
Now, again, Pearl. So here's the thing. Sure, people got married a lot earlier back in those days, but again, she never cited a study. And also, the economic situation right now is completely different in 2024. As far as like home prices being the highest it's ever been, people could move into a new home immediately, but now people can't do that. People can't move into a home really easily unless they're very blessed with a gift or a generous gift or just a really great opportunity by a networking or by a friend or a colleague or anything like that. So it's society right now is not built for marriage, in my opinion, as far as the benefits. And I'm not saying this because I disagree with Pearl. I'm saying this because the financial part of the economy is not really built for the married couple to build a home. So that's probably one of the reasons why people don't get married immediately, like she's stating that they used to do. So I don't think that's related to marriage being a bad thing for men.
If marriage is so bad, including people who end in divorce.
I didn't say all marriage is bad.
Okay. If in general marriage,
I said out of 151
if it's more likely, if it's greater than not, that marriage, it will be bad. And if that's the case, why do 65% of divorced men get married again, even though they've already been through a marriage that's failed? If it's so bad, Pearl, why do the majority of men get married again?
This is such a great question, because I remember seeing this statistic before. I saw one study where I think like 86% of people that get divorced get remarried. So this is a great question. Let's see how Pearl responds.
I would say, people don't always make logical decisions when it comes to love. But my question would go back to, why aren't men signing up in general?
Okay,
so Pearl basically completely ignored Trent's question right here, because sure, like she basically said, oh, when someone's in love, they just get married anyway. But if you've been through the ringer, if you've been through the divorce, through the divorce papers and all that, people still want a long-term spouse. They want a husband or a wife to live life through together. And Pearl is not addressing this at all. I mean, she's saying they could be a girlfriend or boyfriend kind of deal, sure, but there's no security when it comes to that at all. So the fact that she never addressed that question, basically.
So anybody who just disagrees with your standard of marriage, they're just being illogical?
No.
Okay.
I said a good deal. I clarified it in the beginning. I said good deal, doesn't gain weight, sleeps with her husband, stays married. I think that's the bare minimum.
Why can't this be a good deal for marriage? If a married man says that he's happy.
Because I don't think that I think happiness studies, like how do they measure it?
You literally ask the person if they're happy.
Yeah, people lie.
Okay, so it's just a giant conspiracy.
It's not a conspiracy.
Okay, so do you think most men who are married are unhappy?
I think most men that sign up for marriage out of the original, not stay married, that sign up for marriage, 51 are unhappy with that original deal. And we can agree at least 40% divorce, right?
Yeah, there's a 40%.
Okay, so what percent of men rate themselves as happy?
You don't get to ask that questions. I get to ask them. And as I said before, just because a marriage ends in divorce, it doesn't mean that person now thinks that marriage is a bad deal, since the majority of men who get divorced choose to go back and get married anyways. I want to go back to some of the different...
Why don't the majority of men sign up for marriage?
You don't get to ask. I'm going to go back here.
Right. And I like this question or how Trent phrases this, because he's using his arguments very effectively in saying that the woman... It's more so a bad deal because of the person he chose to marry rather than the marriage institution itself. Because the majority of men get remarried after divorce. So it's a very, very interesting point he makes.
A good deal. They'd sign up.
Yeah, well,
good products get sold. You think Elon Musk is running out of his cars when they first came out, anyways. I don't know about now, but I heard that truck was bad.
All right, let's see here, because you've brought up
80% of women get HPV. That's crazy.
Okay, what percent of men get HPV?
Similar, but they're only the sexually active ones, and there's a higher percent of sexually active women.
I guess I'll start asking these questions. Do men have a lot of STDs?
A smaller, they're at a lower rate than women.
How do you know that?
You can Google it, CDC.
Okay, but still, do the majority of men have STDs who are unmarried, sexually active?
Well, if they're sexually active, but the minority, this is the thing, you guys don't know what's going on, because you guys have been out of the game so long. Well, the number one way that people are meeting is dating apps. Women swipe right 5, 10, up to 20% of the time. What does that mean?
Okay.
A minority of men can even sleep around. Okay. So when you guys are saying men stop sleeping around, a minority of men even get the choice to do that.
Do men cheat?
Yeah.
Okay. So if a man cheats and he leaves his wife to be with another woman, is it fair that he should have to compensate her by paying for things like child support now that he's abandoned her?
Is he going to be an active father?
If a
Well,
man,
it's
no,
one thing. So,
no,
so
I'm
I'm
asking the
asking.
question again. If a man, is married to a woman, they have 3 kids, and he says, "Wow, I'd like to be married to this other lady instead that I had an affair
Okay.
with," and he abandons his wife and children, and his wife has been raising these kids, and now they're on their own. Isn't it just that he should compensate them for putting them in that position by
How
paying
old?
child
How many
support?
kids? How old?
Let's say 3 kids, 3, 6, and 9.
3, 6, and 9. And he completely abandoned them. Not even.
So he tells the wife, "You can have full custody of the kids. I want to go and get remarried." Shouldn't he have to support them since he was an awful person and abandoned them and put them in this position?
You know what? Sorry. No, I don't believe in child support. I don't believe in alimony. I think it's equal. Women have fought. We have fought for equality.
Okay.
Wait.
Wow, dang, that's I actually should have seen that coming. Honestly,
We have fought for equality. We got it. So now you get a job like everyone else. It's a sad situation, but overwhelmingly, men aren't the ones doing that. Women, there are far more deadbeat moms than deadbeat dads.
Do you think you simp for men?
No.
So you don't call it simping for men and saying that
I think, yeah, I'm a guy, and I think Pearl sims for men. Let's let's be real, but I think it's kind of crazy to say that child support shouldn't exist. Now, I think that it needs to be verified. Like, there needs to be a lot of verification when it comes to child support, and like, as long as the income is going for the children and all of that. But like, not having any child support at all, yeah, I don't agree with that. I think child support is very necessary.
That if a woman does something bad, she should have to pay consequences for it. But if a man,
I'm going to finish.
If a man abandons his family because he wants to screw some other lady and puts them into poverty, you're saying he shouldn't have to spend a dime on that.
Yeah,
Why?
equality, baby, because women abandon their families all the time and they're not punished, they're rewarded. So I say equal rights, equal left. You guys fought for equality, here it is.
Then shouldn't the answer be both, that instead of saying both men and women should be allowed to be awful people, shouldn't we say men and women should both be held to higher standards?
I would say, I don't, it depends what you mean by higher standards, but what I would say is I don't think we should have child support. I don't think we should have alimony. I think it's wrong.
So even if a man he just leaves, his wife has been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, 3 kids. She has been out of the workplace, going to have a difficult time finding a job. And I know personally women that this has happened to. And he leaves and goes have sex with someone else. We're not talking about other women being bad. You're saying in that case, the man shouldn't be compelled to provide for the family he abandoned.
Well, I would say for the same case that if women cheat and leave for another husband, they shouldn't have alimony or child support either. I'm saying in both cases we should not have alimony.
Let me
or
ask you
child
a question.
support.
Let's say you have.
I don't believe.
I
I don't believe in paying people to make wrong decisions.
Okay.
I don't believe in that.
All right. So if a woman, let's say you have a stay-at-home dad, successful woman, has been out, she's boss
Can
girl.
she be a lawyer?
Sure. She's
All right.
she's the boss girl lawyer, turns into the She-Hulk when she needs to, whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
And she's gonna make a lot of money, and then she leaves her husband and kids, says, "Hey, Frank, you can have the kids. I'm gonna run off with this other lawyer at the office." And now he and the kids are in poverty. Do you think that she should have to pay child support to them?
Nope. I think he should get a job.
Okay.
And so should she.
So you don't believe? Do you believe in marriage at all?
I believe. What kind of marriage? I don't believe in marriage as it is today.
What?
If we tomorrow got rid of child support, got rid of alimony, got rid of all these incentives for bad decisions, fine. Then I would have no problem. But my issue is, one, the quality of women is lower than ever before.
Pearl,
the risk is the risk.
Well, first of all, I don't think child support is really an incentive for divorce, because if the husband is working and providing an income for the home, technically the wife will have a lot more access to more money when she's married to her husband, rather than getting a divorce and just receiving an income for receiving like one paycheck every week or every other week for child support. So I disagree with that, what she's saying with that. And also, there's child support in cases without marriage in the government. There's child support where people have to pay out. I know someone in particular personally where they have to pay out child support for children that the guy's not even married to. So this is not only regulated for marriage purposes.
Risk is higher, and women are paid to
Pearl,
leave.
what is marriage?
One person for a lifetime, and the woman submits to her husband and is obedient for a lifetime.
Okay.
But I'm not. And see, I guess my head goes in a couple directions, because the other thing is, today it's nothing.
Okay.
Today, you said the average marriage is longer than 7 years. Let's say it's 12 years.
The median length is 21 years.
The average, let's say 21. That's still not a lifetime. And a quarter of divorces are gray divorces. So it happens when people are in their 50s and 60s. So that's the other thing about these stats. It doesn't predict who in the future gets divorced. It says today. So and it doesn't include people that are separated. I know couples in their 50s and 60s. They've been separated for years. They're still counted as married. So My issue again is marriage as it is today, and I just think you would never sign a contract that pays somebody to leave. I think it's super logical. If someone's paid to do the wrong thing, they're going to do it. And what are women doing?
Okay.
They're leaving. I'm so shocked.
If marriage is a lifelong union, and let's say a woman does what you say she should do, right?
I don't say women should do anything.
Well, you say women should be obedient to their husbands, right?
If the woman gets married, but
If
some
the woman
women,
gets married,
some women
should she
be
stay
alone.
home and raise the kids, Pearl? Is she?
Well, it depends, and I can't give you a straight answer. Like I can't
I didn't hear that question. Rewind real quick.
do anything.
Well, you say women should be obedient to their husbands, right?
If the woman gets married, but
If
some
the woman
women,
gets married,
some women
should
be
she stay
alone.
home and raise the kids, Pearl? Is she?
Well, it depends, and I can't give you a straight answer. Like I can't give you a straight answer. It depends. What does he want?
Let's say he wants her to stay home and raise kids.
Fine, then yeah, sure.
And you think that that's a reasonable thing? So
The
if a
majority of women aren't.
if a
Though.
woman
That's not the
does-
majority, and that's the thing that.
No,
like,
let me finish.
go
So if a
ahead.
woman does that, then she takes a significant amount of risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, she makes herself. Does she take risk in choosing to become financially dependent on one person?
Yes, she does, but women aren't choosing that. That's a funny thing. Women are having 1 to 2 children. They're in public school. So let's not act like these women are home, housewifing it up.
Okay.
These kids
What?
are in public school for 8 hours a day.
You're right. Men are men and women. They aren't choosing marriage.
But Pearl's ignoring the fact that a mother's going to raise those kids basically from the day they're born until they're 5 or 6 years old every single day. You know, 24/7. They're going to be home with the kids if they take that risk. So I think she's lying and kind of being deceitful and saying that I just put them in public school and that's it. It's not that simple.
Both of them aren't.
True. But didn't you say men are in control of marriage? That's what you said earlier.
Yeah. So really, it's
So
more
then-
they're
so
not
then-
choosing to do it. Right.
Exactly. And women aren't choosing because women are not wives today.
Okay.
It's okay, man. Man up and marry these whores.
You got 1 minute left.
Okay. Do you think that men are marriageable who've looked at pornography?
Yeah.
How about men who have helped run the camera at OnlyFans?
What % of men do that, Trent?
No, I'm asking you a
This
question.
is come on.
I'm asking you a question.
Who have run the camera? Personally, not for me. Run the camera at OnlyFans.
All right, we only have a few seconds left, so I'm just going to take it back to the main thing, the final main question.
Okay.
Okay. Do just a yes or no. Do the majority, 80% of men who are married, say they are happy? Yes or no?
They say it, but we don't know if they're telling the truth.
All right, we are going to go into a time of Q&A.
So again, it's kind of weird that Pearl says this because you can say whatever you want. Like you could say, like Pearl's saying that they could be lying, but what's the purpose? What's the gain that the participant gets in lying when their name isn't unless their name is attached to the survey and they see their wife's going to look at it or whatever. But there's no benefit for them lying for a study. So her retort and saying that they could just lie is kind of it's just not good. It's not really that knowledgeable of a response, to be honest.
And which will take questions from our local supporters and from super chatters. What do y'all think? Since we have so many questions, would 2 minutes each be a good idea? Just so, and it can be less than that, but it might be a good idea just to keep it to that. All right. Okay, so here's my first question, and I'll ask you first, Pearl, and then Trent. And you take up to 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. Do your best job summarizing his position in a way that sounds convincing. I want to see that you've understood his position, and then I'm going to give you a chance to articulate her position to see if you've understood hers. You go first.
Trent believes that men should just man up and marry these whores.
That was a great steal, man.
I don't know if is that how you'd say it?
Oh my gosh, and that just tells you everything you need to know about Pearl right there. She didn't even try to articulate his point of view, unless she's joking. We'll see.
No, I mean he said that they shouldn't disqualify women for having STDs. They shouldn't disqualify
I'm
women
not
for
asking you
having
to argue
abortions.
against him. I'm asking you, can you understand his position and say it? Because it seems to me that if I can't articulate my opponent's position, that's a good sign that I haven't understood it. So I'm trying to see, what's his
I
position?
understand his position perfectly. He believes there are a bunch of studies that say that men are happier in marriage and marriage makes men happier and better people.
Okay. How do you feel about that? Is that
And
show on the track?
men should not disqualify for abortions, STDs, and being a whore.
Okay, so do you want to respond to, is that a good summary or?
No, of course it's not a good summary.
Well, why don't you sum up her position as best as you can then?
Sure. Pearl thinks marriage is a bad deal because sometimes women gain 15 pounds in the 70 years that they're married, and guys should be able to run for the hills because that's the worst thing in the world.
Is that basically it?
No.
I don't think Trent did a good job here either with that, because it's not just weight. There's a lot more that goes into it, a lot more risk.
Okay. All right, a question here from Catholic Viking from over on Locals. And Thursday, you want to throw up some super chats on the screen here? I love when he calls me boss man. I feel so important. Catholic Viking, so we'll start with Trent. Trent, is there a point in debating marriage outside the Catholic sacrament? And if so, how do you accomplish that when it can mean whatever that person defines it as? Feels like what is a woman type of question, and we need to define marriage as the sacrament. You go first, and then you'll have 2 minutes to talk.
Yeah. So marriage is something that God gave the human race. It was created with Adam and Eve, our first parents. So marriage is not a uniquely Catholic thing. That's why when the government tries to change marriage to make so-called same-sex marriage, that's wrong, because the government can't change what marriage is any more than it can change what friendship or justice is. Marriage is a natural institution. Nearly every society on earth has discovered it for the good of men and women and the children that proceed from their unions. So marriage is a natural institution. The Catholic Church recognizes that if someone in Pacific Islands or in another country, if they enter into a monogamous, ideally lifelong, sexually exclusive union, then we call that marriage and we recognize it. And it's better for societies that have marriage, because this is better for the children that proceed from those unions than it is for anything else.
All right.
Can you repeat the question?
I could if I wasn't desperately looking up other questions while I asked that and have thereby forgotten.
sorry.
No, it's not your fault. So this person's asking whether there's any point even debating marriage outside of the sacrament, because people define marriage however they want to. So if we're going to be debating marriage, shouldn't we figure out that we both agree on what it is before we debate it? He's like, how do you accomplish it when it can mean whatever a person defines it?
I think that's a problem I come to, because people look at it from a religious point of view, and I'm coming from a legal point of view. So
I would also add, just as a non-Catholic and a non-Christian can know what a woman is from reason alone, they can know what marriage is from reason alone.
All right, I'll ask Pearl this question.
Then why do they keep saying gay marriage? Like, that's legal now.
Because people often don't act reasonably,
or
they don't
say
think
it's unreasonable.
Well.
Okay, this question is from Tony. He says, Pearl, do you see a difference between a woman who has no regret for current digressions versus one who has repented, that is, from current porn, and unrepentant versus repentant and regretful? So, in other words, is there a difference between a woman who's screwed up in the past and doesn't regret it, doesn't repent it, and then there are people who've screwed up in the past, we've all made mistakes.
When it comes,
this is a great question. Let's see what she says.
If I phrase the question as if my brother was to date, if I was recommending my brother date someone, I don't think it would matter. I think that if you really want what's best for a guy, you want him to have high standards for his wife.
Trent, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think
so. Again, she completely ignored and didn't answer the question right here. Is there a difference between somebody who just screws up and somebody who is repentant of their sin, repentant of what they've done, and never do it again? The Bible talks about this very clearly, and again, I'm not saying that every man needs to forgive what this woman does and just marry them. In fact, I'm actually on the side of Pearl in this case, where I wouldn't want my son to marry someone like that, or I wouldn't myself want to marry someone that's in that industry, or a woman that is in those industries, such as content creation, graphic content creation, to put it lightly. So, yeah, that's my stance on that.
That people should choose to marry the best person for them, and choose to marry someone who has a good chance of being in a lifelong union. But not all of us, people make mistakes in their lives. But when it comes, so for example, large majorities of men look at pornography and have sex outside of marriage. That harms their future chances in marriage, but not irreparably. A much tinier percentage of women do things like be on OnlyFans, and that also harms their chances in future marriage, but not irreparably.
I get a question because it seems like, and this is to you, and I'll get a question. Pearl seems to be saying, you're just out of touch, you're old, you don't understand what it's like today. So maybe that was true for you back in the late 90s or the early 2000s, that women were marriageable, they were better. But isn't it possible that you are out of touch and that she's right just today? I mean, why don't you ask young men, and have you asked young men? Maybe they would agree with Pearl.
Sure, and when you look at studies and you look at young men who have gotten married and who stay married, they do say that women are marriageable. What Pearl is doing here is that if you create so high of a standard that no woman can meet it, you've just created you've created an arbitrary standard, and it's also sexist if you don't apply the same standards to men, such as don't marry a man who has actively or passively supported an abortion. There's going to be the same percentage as women involved in abortions. I'm saying to treat men and women equally in this regard, and we do see that there's if what Pearl's doing is the reverse of a radical feminist who says, oh, men are terrible, men are awful, look at all these awful, terrible things that men do, and say there's no good men out there. That's not true. There's plenty of good men out there. You just have an anti-male standard to exclude them, and that's the same for people who try to do the same, to say that marriage is bad because of women.
That's a really good point that Trent makes. I think that's why I think Pearl is more of a simp for men in a lot of cases, which is really rare. And I think that's how she got really popular online, which has, I think, about 2 million subscribers on YouTube, because there isn't many voices speaking for men in these cases. And that's why I think Pearl, and this is more of my own reflection of Pearl, I think she has a lot of flaws because she doesn't live out the life of... She doesn't live out an example of the kind of life that she thinks is good for men, or a good wife for men. Because the thing is, if she was in the position like Lila Rose, who is a staunch pro-life activist and has done a lot of good work in promoting that and all across the country with their live action organization, I would look at Pearl differently, but Pearl doesn't do that. She does it for the attention, she does it for the subscribers, and it's great marketing for her. Great money maker, money grab. So good for her in that regard, for the economy. However, she's not a wife. She might have a boyfriend behind the scenes, I don't know. But she's, in her eyes, she's, I think, 26 or 27 years old. So from her point of view, from what her ideas of marriage are, or the standards for men and women, she's past the best years of her life according to her standard, in that women should get married at 23, 24, 25. So the fact that she's not married and hasn't followed through with her own standard is just kind of a big tell. It's a big tell to me, in my opinion.
I don't think it's crazy for men to ask for an in-shape woman that didn't have an abortion, STD, or debt. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know tattoos. I don't think that's crazy.
No, but I think it's crazy.
And I would say that to make it a deal breaker that you're going to pick any mistake a person makes, what you're doing is the same as a woman who says, it's not crazy for me to say, I want to marry a man who makes 6 figures and has a six-pack.
No, I would not say those are the same.
No, because you're saying, can a woman say she wants a guy who is in shape and has a good job?
Fine.
Okay. So
that's no problem.
And then I would say that can a man be in shape if he's 15 pounds overweight?
I would say in shape is with a BMI scale. So for the most part, and visceral fat, that's what you got to look at.
Okay.
Do you think most middle-aged guys are?
I think
so. Pearl doesn't. She's not being consistent for both men and women. If a man is overweight and it's not due to and she just says, oh, it's a BMI. Well, she doesn't ask these questions when it comes to women with the BMI. She only sets the standard for women, not for men.
Muscly, or they got a little fat.
I think again we're going back to, what do men get out of marriage? I don't think it's crazy for men to say, I don't want a woman that's had an STD, an abortion, or debt.
But real quick,
yeah, I agree with Pearl on that. I don't think it's crazy either, honestly.
I don't think you think it's crazy either, right?
So and by that logic, there would not be enough wives to go around.
I would say
in the next generation.
It's unreasonable, because if you applied the same standard and say for women, it's reasonable for women to not want a man who has an STD or has looked at pornography or has been involved in abortion procedures, then there wouldn't be any men later. Both men and women aren't in great shape today. You're trying to make it sound like it's all women's fault. What I'm saying is just people's fault, and we need each other.
Can I ask you a question now? Trent, I thought, brought up a good point earlier when he said, sure, okay, I'm willing to accept that women are in way worse state today than they may have been 50 years ago, but that's also true of dudes. And so couldn't it just be the case that both men and women, in some respects, may be much worse than they were 50 years ago?
I would say that men are more marriageable than women today. I would say that most men have jobs, and most men are not sleeping around like that. I wouldn't say that porn is as detrimental to a marriage as you're saying.
If a man looks at violent pornography, does that
women look at violent pornography more than men?
No, I'm asking the question.
Women look at 50 Shades of Grey, all that stuff. That's the other thing. Women look at pornography at a much higher rate than people really are willing to.
Is it higher than men?
I wouldn't say higher than men, but violent pornography women look at more. I'm positive.
So you don't think men look at violent pornography more?
Not as much as women.
No,
not
do you have a study to back that up?
Not off the top. Not off the top of my head. You can look it up. Though.
Just so this doesn't go off the rails, I'm going to start taking some questions.
You can look at 50 Shades of Grey. That was one of the biggest grossing movies.
So this question's for you. Eleazar Palmer, thank you so much for the super chat, says, I work with young adults daily at Catholic University. Pearl, can you give one argument that is not anecdotal or subjective as to why marriage is not the move for young people?
I would say because for women it's beneficial. For women, sure, but for men, because women are paid to leave. Simple.
You respond?
Well, I don't understand. Well, wasn't the question about men, why men should not get married?
Can you scroll back up?
Well, no, it says why. You says young people.
You just stay on until
it said young people. So I said for women, it's yeah.
Okay, so here's this question is also for Trent. Trent, why aren't young people getting married?
Why? That's a sociological question, so there's a lot of different elements to it. One, why aren't they getting married? The marriage rate has been decreasing. One reason I would say is because people fill their heads with anti-marriage propaganda. Like if you tell people over and over again, half of all marriages fail, when that's not true. The majority of marriages last a lifetime. They think that they're not going to make it. So they've imbibed the cultural attitude that's anti-marriage. Also, frankly, so there's a lot of men, back in the day, well, put it crudely, no one buys the cow if you can get the milk for free. So, I mean, for men, most of the time, if they wanted to have a sexual encounter with a woman, they married a woman or they paid for a prostitute. Now, through the rise of online pornography, other elements like that, you have a lot of men who had a failure to launch. They're not getting jobs. They're not getting discipline. They're looking at porn every day, including violent porn. And so they're not becoming the men women need them to be for marriage. We also have difficult economic issues right now. People are delaying marriage to get more advanced degrees. Well, I will say that if you're college educated, you have one of the lowest risks of divorce.
One thing I think I might be sympathetic to what Pearl is saying is it seems like many men, especially in the conservative kind of Christian movement, we're very comfortable criticizing men. You know, your failure to launch, you're a slob, get yourself in shape. But we seem less likely...
Well, and
can you scroll down just a touch, he's saying?
Oh, sorry.
I think I want to ask you, men and women. So I would say that women, for example, men and women both think there's many things I want to pursue in my 20s and 30s before I get married down. And I would encourage both of them. That is not a good strategy. A better strategy is to get vocational, technical, or college education, get stable employment, and get married probably around in your mid-20s.
Are you willing to criticize women today?
Oh, yeah. A lot of women are overly picky. So they'll, just as what Pearl is saying,
men should have standards.
If they have standards. Women have extremely high standards, saying that men have to get an exorbitantly high income. They look at a relationship like, oh, he needs to have this certain height, or he needs to have. So just as what Pearl is saying, I would say that just as unreasonable for Pearl to say married men have to demand a woman not gain 15 pounds in their marriage, it's unreasonable for women to say I'm not going to marry a guy unless he's 6 foot tall, unless he makes 6 figures,
unless he looks like Thursday.
Rather, what we should look for is the person virtuous? Is the person someone?
Isn't being fat gluttony?
Is it being fat gluttony?
Isn't that gluttony?
No, people can be fat without being gluttonous, and they can be gluttonous without being fat. They're not the same thing.
Should I scroll to another question, Thursday? He does. All right. Okay, this person, let's see, Shauna Rencher, thank you so much. Research shows marriage matters to kids with more resources and improved outcomes for kids. Healthy kids become healthy adults. If you want suitable adults, shouldn't you make them in the environment proven to do that? Marriage. Do you want to go?
I
That's a good point. Let's see.
don't disagree with that if the laws aren't paying women to leave. And that's the problem. You're going to get the same outcomes we got last generation and the generation before that with every round of people that gets married, and it's just going to be less and less. So you will not have that outcome until you switch the laws.
If the laws were changed how you would like them to be changed, do you think marriage would then be a better deal for men?
Yeah, that's my whole point.
And so what should be changed to make
there
that
should
the
be
case?
no alimony, no child support, 50-50 custody off the bat.
All right, so if that was changed tomorrow, all of a sudden would you be okay?
Yeah, fine.
Go get men.
Fine.
What do you think about that? If that's the main point?
Yeah, it's just the laws today. It's crazy. People have no idea how disadvantaged men are in the court system. So if that was changed today, yeah, fine.
What I would say is we can always improve things like child custody cases, family court.
Yeah, I agree with Pearl in the sense that the family court is very against men in general, as far as like the custody of children, as far as the income disparity, but with paying out in divorce. But a lot of cases, that's because men have the higher paying job, or the woman's a stay-at-home mother. But then again, women, according to one study that Trent says, many women are impoverished, and many single mothers are in poverty after divorce. So there's not really too many great things that come. It's not like women are just celebrating in Cancun after a divorce or anything like that, because that doesn't happen in every single case, or in fact most cases.
Because something can always be improved, it doesn't follow that it's so bad we should have nothing to do with it now. Higher education can certainly be improved, but people who get college degrees tend to be better off than people who don't. So it's still a smart move for people to go and get one. So just because something can be improved doesn't mean it's so bad you shouldn't take part in it now. So for men, if you want to have a sexual relationship with a woman, which children can come from, you're much better off being married than being unmarried, because you still have all of these custody issues, but you come from the weaker position of being unmarried. And if you say, well, I'm just going to stay away from women entirely, you risk growing up to be a never married man, because women are the ones who create most of the social connections for men. Most of my friends are because my wife gets me my friends. That's how wives work a lot of the time. But if you're a never married man, you risk growing to be old, reclusive, unhealthy, and more risk of suicide.
But again, the women don't want to get married. That I just
provided
gave you.
no
I just gave you.
evidence for that.
If they polled, this is the book of Numbers. So they polled millennial women and Gen Z women.
That's that one. Yeah,
wait. Listen.
Yes,
It's
I read
like
that book.
wait. So I'm saying they polled women on this, and they did not rate men as high in their priority list. And if we just look, even outside of that, you look in the real world, women have the most choice to get married at 22. We're not picking it.
All right, we got a question here from Nathaniel, who's a local supporter. Hey.
So again, I don't know if that's a study she cited, but I think that's all I'm going to do right now for today for the live stream for this debate. Is marriage a bad deal for men? This is between Pearl Davis and Trent Horn. And my thoughts, I think so far, I think Trent is winning the debate as far as between Pearl and against Pearl, because Trent provided more data, he provided more statistics to back and support his claim. That doesn't mean that Pearl is right or wrong, though, either. Pearl could be more right than Trent for all we know, but based off this debate itself, Trent won because he provided more data and more support, and he came to the debate more prepared, in my opinion. Pearl relies too much on her own first person point of view experience and her show as a way of proof in her mind for the examples that come to marriage being bad for men. And again, I'm not discounting her experiences. I'm not discounting the conclusions and the results of what she discovered during her interviews. I think interviews are great. I think podcasts are great to learn more about the human experience and to learn more about each other. But using peer-reviewed studies, I think, is more knowledgeable and more, and it's just a better standard when it comes to debating marriage as a whole, because marriage is a very complex entity in society. It's one of the most important functions to society, and honestly, one of the biggest things anybody can do with their life. You could say, oh, like your job is the biggest thing you do in your life. Well, you can easily quit that, not easily, but you can have the ability, if you're able to, quit that job, find connections, and do a different career path. But marriage, at least as a sacrament, is supposed to be forever. It's supposed to be forever under the eyes of God. That's a fact. So when you think about marriage itself, you have to use studies and to try to live up to marriage as the highest entity, because these peer-reviewed studies are the highest forms of knowledgeable basis when it comes to this topic outside of the Bible, of course. So for those of you listening, again, so let's be clear. I think Trent is the winner of this debate, but I think Pearl could have beaten Trent if she used more statistics to support her claims. So again, if you enjoyed this debate, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel below. And thank you very much for listening. What